25% on Mexico and Canada.
With Donald Trump back in the Oval Office, the threat of economic conflict returns to the Western Hemisphere. How will Mexico, Brazil, and other Latin American countries respond to import tariffs? How will supply chains be reordered? And how will America be impacted as it punishes its top trading partners? We dive into the trouble of tariffs. Mexico City, where the traditional local marketplace is still the beating heart of the neighborhood. Inside these dedicated buildings, customers stroll the aisles, perusing vendors' fresh, seasonal vegetables. However, changes are looming, facing the threat of 25% blanket tariffs on international trade following Donald Trump's return to the White House. Microeconomies like this one are among the most vulnerable. Sandra Montes runs a flower stand at the market's entrance.
El tulipán, ahorita en su temporada nacional está barato, pero en temporadas de que no hay todo el año y es importado, está una decena de tulipanes de 800 a 1,200 pesos la decena. Viene de Estados Unidos, de aranceles, pues imagínense, ya no vamos a tener venta de eso siquiera, porque van a decir, pues está muy caro.
The final links in the international supply chains that provide goods to end consumers, small-scale vendors here cannot afford to absorb the increased costs that larger commercial operations like supermarket chains might.
O sea, mercados podemos desaparecer porque está entrando mucho centro comercial. Al incrementarse nosotros los aranceles y todo eso, pues esto puede desaparecer. Sin en cambio las empresas grandes como centros comerciales, pues sigue habiendo mucho.
But it's not only here. Across Mexico City, across Mexico, and across Latin America as a whole, the threat of US tariffs is causing economic disruption after Donald Trump's return to the Oval Office.
We're thinking in terms of 25% on Mexico and Canada because they're allowing vast numbers of people to come in and fentanyl to come in.
Yeah.
Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum's response has been level-headed, proposing dialogue over economic conflict with every new threat.
Como saben, tiene su forma de comunicar, pero siempre, como decimos, pues cabeza fría y con optimismo en que podemos llegar a un acuerdo.
In the case of tariffs, Mexico has suggested retaliatory levies would be imposed, measures which would put an end to a free trade era lasting over 30 years.
El 25% de manera generalizada implicaría de facto el fin del TEMEC, ¿ok? Porque ya no estaríamos en este comercio basado en normas, negociado el acceso al mercado tal como está definido en el TEMEC original. Lo estaría acabando de inmediato.
For Mexico, around 80% of whose exports go to the United States, the impact would be disastrous.
Es un escenario catastrófico porque México depende más de Estados Unidos que lo que Estados Unidos depende de México.
As tariffs loom, everyone from local markets to Mexico's most developed economic sectors, all are bracing for impact. The tariffs threaten to impact Mexico's most important economic sectors, the largest of which is the automotive industry.
It'll be 25% and higher, and it'll go very substantially higher over a course of a year.
Guillermo Rosales is the president of the Mexican Association of Automotive Distributors.
Hablando de la industria automotriz, el año pasado, 2024, se contribuyó con más de $100,000 millones de divisas netas. El 87% de la producción de vehículos ligeros se destina a la exportación y de ese total el 80% va a Estados Unidos, pues estamos entonces en un grave problema.
A highly integrated industry across the entire region, Rosales argues that the increased tariffs would redraw supply and value chains for the worse.
Un componente automotriz, pensemos en un motor, tuvo en el ir y venir hasta 10 cruces.
Mexico is not the only country set to be impacted by the tariffs. Also in the firing line is Brazil, a major US trade partner, although with less dependence on North American commerce.
The one thing that seems quite striking...
Gustavo Ribeiro is a founding partner at the Brazilian Report, covering Latin America's largest economy for an international audience.
Brazil does not depend on the US when we're talking about the overall trade. The manufacturing sector will be hit the hardest because the US is the main destination of manufacturer exports.
However, it's not all bad news. Indeed, Brazil faced tariffs during Trump's first term in office, from which other sectors emerged stronger thanks to market diversification.
The biggest winners, however, could be Brazilian farmers, because when Trump raised tariffs against China, that made China turn to Brazil for many agricultural products such as soybeans, for which Brazilian farmers compete with American farmers for markets. So many Chinese buyers look to Brazil instead of the US.
Brazil may be the region's largest economy, but tariffs threaten Latin America as a whole, where there is little consensus. As the Trump administration's mass deportations began in late January, an emergency summit of the Council of Latin American and Caribbean States was cancelled over disagreements on how to respond.
Very few things have been consensual in terms of Latin American foreign policies. Latin American countries as a whole, they are very different in their interests. Countries do not seek the same thing from their relationship with the US.
The imposition of tariffs may hurt Latin American economies, but its impacts will be felt in the US as well, a country which imports a quarter of everything it consumes.
El 16% de las ventas totales de vehículos en Estados Unidos se producen en México, que pudiera haber un incremento hasta de $6,000 por vehículo vendido en Estados Unidos.
Mexico's own finance minister pointed this out as part of his government's wider response to the tariff threat.
Los consumidores estadounidenses se verían afectados, es decir, les van a subir el precio 25% de todos esos productos. Segundo, porque va a haber menor disponibilidad de productos, porque en la medida que tú le pones un impuesto del 25% a un producto, evidentemente la compra se contrae. O sea, no es solo en el corto plazo, sino que cada vez van creando un daño mayor.
Ultimately, as the resumption of trade hostilities occurs under President Trump, the political tactic of economic disruption will destabilize the Western Hemisphere in an era when regional unity may be these countries' greatest source of strength.